Today, we're going to talk a little bit about your support network and what happens when that support network breaks down. I'm Cameron. I spent years building my career and creating a life I loved. And when my Prince Charming finally showed up, he had 4 kids in tow. Fast forward through lots of mistakes made and lessons learned, step family life was much more complicated than I realized. If you're looking for help with blended family life, you're in the right place. Welcome to the Stepmom Diaries, where we keep it real as we dish about all the things. This is your weekly dose of blended family inspiration and encouragement. You're not the wicked stepmother, so let me help you find your fairy tale ending. Come on, let's do this. Before we get started, I'd love to ask you a favor. If you enjoy the Stepmom Diaries, would you go over to iTunes and leave me a good review? I am here to serve stepmoms, and I really truly want to reach as many stepmoms as possible, so I am hoping you can help me do that with a nice review on iTunes. Have you ever had a situation where your friends or family have not supported your choices as a stepmom? Or they haven't understood why you made the choice at all to be with someone with kids, or they just generally haven't been supportive of your life, your lifestyle. I'm guessing you've had those moments. I know I have. And it's really disappointing when it happens, right? Today, we're going to talk a little bit about how to handle that disappointment and how to move forward when you have people in your life who aren't supporting you. For me, I was single for a long time. I didn't meet Craig until I was 40. My friends were everything. And the idea of them not liking my now husband scared me because I so badly wanted them to get along because their opinions were so important to me. Craig and I met and we got engaged really quickly. We knew by pretty much our second date that we wanted to be together, and we made the decision not to waste any time settling down, in part because we wanted to try for a family of our own, and that's the subject of a whole nother podcast, but mainly it was really just because we had fallen in love with each other. Well, when it happened quickly, it was a surprise to everyone, our friends, our family, probably even a little bit us, right? And not everyone in my life was supportive. So I'm going to tell a little story that I have not talked or written about publicly before because it was very painful. But it is really illustrative of what can happen when you kind of don't have that support in your life, or when you have certain people who aren't supporting your decisions. So Craig and I got married in my hometown, which happens to be a cute little beach resort town in Florida. We had a ton of people who flew in for it, and I was thrilled. I was so excited to be finally marrying this man that I had met who was so amazing and, become this instant mom that, of course, at the time I had all kinds of preconceived notions about that weren't accurate, but we were all, it was a really exciting time, and we had been planning this wedding for a few months and, had all kinds of fun things planned for the wedding weekend. Well, fast forward to the weekend of the wedding. After the rehearsal dinner, we all met up with all the wedding guests at a local bar, and 2 of my friends who had traveled into town for the wedding and who I'd been really excited to see pulled me aside to tell me that in the 5 minutes they had met my husband that night, they didn't like him, they didn't think he was good enough for me, and they couldn't understand why I was getting married. What I found out after the fact was that they had been a little overserved, I'm guessing a lot overserved, and they had pulled Craig aside and told him that they wanted to ask him some questions and put him through the paces to see if he was good enough for me. He was an okay enough sport. I think he was a little put off, but, he answered the questions, and they started quizzing him. He answered questions. They started telling him his answers weren't good enough. So at that point, I think he got pretty put off. They came over. They told me that I did not know him well enough, that they wanted to like him, but just couldn't, that they hoped I had gotten a prenup. Talk about making a gal feel truly terrible on what's supposed to be the most special weekend of her life. I was devastated. It literally ruined the night before my wedding. And I've glossed over a lot of the detail, but this conversation where they told me that he wasn't good enough for me and that I didn't know him well enough all happened right in front of one of his closest friends who had flown in for the wedding as well. So not only was it horrifying that these people who I loved and admired didn't support me, but it was embarrassing because it happened in front of one of Craig's friends. And it was embarrassing how they had treated him as well. So I was devastated. It ruined the night before my wedding. I still look back on my rehearsal dinner and I still love the rehearsal dinner. I still loved my wedding. But this interaction and these friends coming in and telling me that, that the decision that I was making was wrong and that this man who I had picked wasn't good enough for me, it really completely colors my wedding weekend in a way that I can't imagine would happen if I had been marrying someone who didn't have kids. Now, I was determined that it wasn't going to affect the wedding day, and really it didn't for the most part. I had plenty of my closest friends who were there, who were not only happy for me, but who were also on alert at the wedding for any behavior out of these girls that might jeopardize my happiness, and I really appreciated that loyalty from them. But it did put a damper when I saw them at the wedding. I was no longer super happy they were there. One of them has since apologized for that gross behavior, but I really will never look at either of them the same way. People feel like they are entitled to have all kinds of opinions when you're marrying someone with kids. If I had just been marrying someone without kids, I really don't think anyone would have had that kind of outburst during my wedding weekend. So all of that is to say, what do you do when you have a friend or a family member who isn't supportive of your stepfamily, of your relationship? What do you do? How do you handle that? It can be really complicated. I know it has been for me, and I've had other instances where, friends or family have made comments that have been insensitive, and I've really had to examine my feelings around those family members and friends to really figure out how to best handle it in a way that preserves my peace, right? So it can be really complicated because you do want people in your life who are going to support you no matter what, whether you're in the good times or the bad times. And if something did ever fall apart in your life with your partner, you definitely don't want somebody that wasn't happy for you at the beginning who's going to come back and say, I told you so, right? That's not helpful for anybody. So your first instinct when someone's not being supportive, I know it's my first instinct a lot of times, is to just cut them off, cut them out of your life completely. And ultimately, that may end up being what's best. That it may be best to cut out that kind of negative energy, You do want people in your life who are going to support you and love you unconditionally. But before you cut them out, what I want you to do is really keep an open mind. Take a look at what it is they're not supporting about your life and your choices. Listen to what it is they've said to you. Really listen. And then try to look at your situation objectively. Number one, is there any truth to their concerns? And at your core, what do you think about what it is that they've expressed? If there's a kernel of truth to it, is there something that you need to think a little harder about? And number two, are they not being supportive because they truly want what's best for you? Do they have views that are informed by all the facts? And do they really understand the dynamics of your situation when they're expressing their opinion to you? It is real easy to have an opinion about all kinds of things when you don't have all the facts. I think we see it on social media all the time, right? People are spouting off about all kinds of political and other issues that they don't know all the facts about, but they have, real developed opinions about it, right? So if you can think about it, can you honestly say that their concerns are completely unfounded? If there's any sort of kernel of accuracy in their concerns, if you really think about their concerns and what they're expressing to you, is there something there that you need to address? Is there something there that you need to have conversations about with them or with your spouse or whatever the situation is that they're worried about? Is it something you feel like you can have more of a conversation with them about? Are they saying this because they truly want the best for you? Sometimes you may not know that, but I would tell you to really put some thought into the motivation behind what they're expressing and when they're not supporting you. If you feel they really truly want the best for you, and that even if their concerns are unfounded, but there may be like a little tiny, teeny kernel of truth, think about that and how you handle that in your decision making, right? Do you have a relationship where you can talk to them about how hurt you are that they're not supportive? And how will that be received by them? There's so many factors to this. It can be really complicated, right? But the bottom line is you need to think about what the motivations are for this person saying something unsupportive or being unsupportive of your relationship, whether this is someone whose opinion you value, and whether you want them in your life. If the answer to that is yes, then it's worth finding a way to work out, right? It's worth figuring out how to communicate with them, how hurt their comments are, that you feel unsupported, how that makes you feel. Another tricky aspect to all of this, and this can be a real minefield sometimes, right, is how to talk to your spouse about it. Your partner, most likely, I hope this is true, your partner is loyal to you first and foremost. So if you have someone in your life, whether it's a friend or a family member, who's not being supportive, even if they come around and decide to support you, if you talk to your spouse about it, it can color the way that they see them. And that can in turn impact your relationship with that friend or family member, even if you mend fences. Now, I am not at all suggesting that you not talk to your spouse about this. You and your spouse are a team. And I've given lots of advice over the course of all of these podcast episodes and on my site and in my course about how you need to approach things together and you need to be willing to talk about the tough stuff. And that's all true, especially in this situation. But when you have those conversations with your spouse, it is worth being very thoughtful and very intentional about how you have those conversations. Because chances are, if you have a friend that's not being supportive, your spouse may not really like that friend going forward, even if you figure it all out and can move forward with that friend. So it's maybe worth talking that through with your spouse at every step of the way. Whether or not you decide to keep that friend in your life or that family member, I hope that you're able to have an open and honest conversation with them about your feelings so that you can move forward. This is really complicated stuff. I'll tell you another quick story that happened when I became a stepmom. My youngest stepson was going into the hospital for a few days, and I called one of my friends to vent about it. And to vent meaning that I was worried about him and, concerned about how all this was going to go. And my friend said, "Wow, that must be so hard for his mom." And I wanted to scream because, of course, it's hard for his mom. She's his mom. But this is my friend, and I'm his stepmom, and I'm venting to one of my friends about it. And it felt very much to me like she wasn't even thinking that this could be hard for me. She wasn't understanding where I was coming from. So, the way that I approached it was, I said, yeah, I think it is hard for his mom. And it's really hard for me too. And then we kind of talked about what was so hard about it. Now, it made me a little careful for a little while about what I said to this friend. But I also know at the end of the day that this particular friend wants the best for me and is truly looking out for my welfare. And that the remark was maybe careless, maybe a little thoughtless, maybe a little inconsiderate, but it certainly wasn't intentionally hurtful. So if you can kind of suss out where you think your friend or your family member is coming from, what their intentions generally are, And some of that may be hard to figure out sometimes, right? I don't tell you any of this to suggest that you should cut off everyone who is immediately unsupportive, or rather, cut out anyone who is unsupportive immediately. It may be necessary to set up some boundaries with people who aren't supportive of your decisions. It may be necessary to have some hard conversations, right? It doesn't mean that cutting people out of your life is the first step always. You may get to where you need to set some boundaries and you need to take a step back from people who it becomes clear don't have your best interests at heart, or, are saying things that are thoughtless and insensitive and not caring about your feelings. But with some thought and some hard conversations, you can kind of figure that out. And you can kind of decide on what your path forward is going to look like with these people. And I would remember also that there have probably been times in your life where you have expressed things in ways that you wished you could take back, or you haven't been as articulate as you know you can be, right? Or you've just said something truly boneheaded to somebody. I mean, I know it still haunts me. A friend of mine whose mother had passed away a few years beforehand, I saw her at a reunion and asked about her mother because I had totally forgotten that she had passed away. And I immediately knew that I had said something just totally boneheaded. I immediately was like, oh my gosh, I'm so sorry. I'm so sorry. I'm so sorry. But I felt terrible about it, right? And she had the grace to forgive me and know that it was not intentional. So I would ask, as you experience, people or family members who you feel like may not be supportive, to really do the deeper work, really have the hard conversations, really examine your feelings around them and, their past support of you, their intentions towards you, because nobody's perfect and everybody deserves a little bit of grace when they say something really stupid, right? And I expressed that to one of the friends who called me months after my wedding to apologize for her behavior the night before my wedding. I was very honest with her and I told her how much it had hurt me. I told her that I would never think of the night before my wedding and not think about that interaction and not think about how horrible they made me feel because I had fallen in love with this man who happened to have kids, and that they had treated him so poorly. And I was able to have that open and honest conversation with her. I don't know that we'll, be close friends, but we were able to end the conversation in a really positive note. And she asked for my forgiveness. She asked for me to give her another chance. She said that she would hope to, someday meet my husband under different circumstances. And I told her I appreciated that. And I did. I still do. I think, that someone who can come back from, behavior that they know wasn't right maybe does deserve some grace, right? So all of these are really hard issues. It's really hard to think about someone that you love not supporting you. And it's really hard to think about what you need to do in response. So I hope that this has been helpful for you. I hope that you don't have to deal with people in your life that are not fully supportive of your relationship. But I think as stepmoms, that's something that we often have to face, because when we marry someone with kids or partner up with someone with kids, our loved ones do see that we're dealing with dynamics that aren't there when two people who are childless get together. And so it may be natural that they worry about us a little bit, right? So these are tough issues, but if you approach them thoughtfully and intentionally, you can get through them and you can do this. So that's all for today. I will see you next week. And if you have a chance to go over to iTunes or wherever you listen to the podcast, throw in a good rating and a nice comment for me. I'd really appreciate it, helping to get the word out to more and more stepmoms just like you, so that I can serve as many stepmoms as possible. Really appreciate it. See you next time. That's it for this week. If you've enjoyed our chat, I hope you'll help spread the word. Share this episode with friends and head on over to wherever you listen to podcasts and leave me a review. And don't forget, for more great stepmom content, head on over to thiscustomlife.com and follow me on social media. Just search This Custom Life on Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, and Pinterest. Until next time, you keep being you and know that we are in this together. See you here next week.